So there are some people who support the idea that some are eternally damned, not because they deserve it, but because they freely separate themselves from God. They choose to alienate themselves from God, and they persistently and eternally continue to freely reject God's overtures of grace. So the argument from an infinite opportunity is in the first instance, or primarily directed at that view of eternal damnation. Does that make sense? And what I argue is that if we really suppose that they are eternally damned because they freely choose it, and they remain free throughout the duration of eternity to change their minds, but the reason why they're eternally damned is because they never do, right? So it's always their freedom that's preventing them from being saved. But for that continued free choice, they would be saved. I have to ask, how coherent is it to imagine that there's a real possibility at every moment that they will change their mind, but that they never do? And so imagine that I have a coin, and heads and tails, and tails, it represents continue to reject God. Heads represents repent and open oneself up to divine grace. Right? So suppose we imagine that the free choice is a real possibility of either one of these things happening. What we have to imagine is that I'm going to flip this coin just, every second for eternity, and it's never going to come up heads. How probable is that? Well, it is strictly speaking possible, but the probability of me having never made this heads choice, so to speak, becomes infinitesimally small as the timeline moves towards infinity. Or put another way, it is a mathematical certainty, if not a logical certainty, that under the conditions of that sort of genuine freedom, people would change their mind.